almost to a person. They come in nervous. They don't want to tell their story, but they do it and they are guided through it. They don't have to do any homework. They don't write anything. We guide them through their story. They're done. They stand up. They say, thank you. And then they say, can I ask my friends and neighbors to tell their stories too? This was so much fun.
From NCPR, welcome to Northwards. People, ideas, and conversations from and about Northern New York, Vermont, and beyond. I'm Mitch Teich.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from the J.C. Steiniger and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Community Foundation in support of the Adirondack Community Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities. You're not peaking, but I've got you turned.
I peaked back in my 30s, I think.
No, don't say that. We're always growing and learning things.
Ethan, are we rolling now?
We have been rolling.
I figured. You know what I discovered today as I was channel surfing on my radio? Yes, I will admit I was not listening to our very radio station. I had to take a little break from the news as I was driving in this morning, and so I was channel surfing among stations that play what the young people today now know as oldies, which I knew back in the day as
Newies.
Songs. Yes. And what I had never noticed before until today when I channel surfed between two stations that were playing the following two songs is how similar they sound. One of those songs, Prince, Raspberry Beret.
Okay.
The other song, Madonna, Material Girl.
I guess I'm not familiar enough with Raspberry. Sing it.
She wore a raspberry beret, the kind you find at a secondhand store. She wore a raspberry beret. I don't know any other words to the song.
Because we're living in a material. Okay, yeah, okay, I see it. Cool.
Yeah.
Great. That's today's revelation.
And actually, now that I think of it, maybe it wasn't Raspberry Beret. Maybe it was Little Red Corvette, which also sounds very much like Raspberry Beret.
Let me tell you about a weird radio experience that I had. Before I was driving my current vehicle, I had a car that didn't have like an aux input, so I had no way to plug in my phone. But I had a CD player, and I was traveling.
You couldn't get your phone into the little slot.
It just wouldn't fit, no matter how much I crammed. I was driving down to go visit Erin, and she had a cassette deck in her car, so I had gotten into the habit of making her mixtapes. This was probably 10, 11 years ago. And she liked it a lot. You know, there's a lot of stuff that I was listening to that I thought that she would like. And so I was particularly fond of this one mixtape that I made for her. So I burned a CD of it and was playing it all the way down traveling to visit Erin, I think in Oswego. And I'd gotten through the CD probably 2 or 3 times. I'm listening to this track. It's a Selena Gomez song, and I'm just like, I've heard this 3 times already. I just want to sit in silence for a little while. So I went to hit the off button, but what I hit instead was the FM button.
Oh.
I pressed the FM button, and what is playing but that Selena Gomez song in the exact same spot where I tried to turn it off.
Wow.
It was a 1 in a billion chance.
That is a freakazoid.
It was, and I was freaked out by it, and I looked at the radio to confirm that, in fact, I had switched it to the FM. And I was like, well, I'm just going to keep rolling because I guess I was destined to listen to this song.
You know, this is reminding me of a period in my life that I have not thought about. A period of my life as it pertains to cars that I had not thought about for years until you started talking about this. And that was the period during which we were all transitioning from cassettes to CDs. And you could buy a portable CD player, and one of the benefits, one of the features on it was it would have like 45-second or 60-second anti-skip, so that you could listen to it in your car. And the only way you could listen to it in your car is if you had this adapter that looked like a cassette that you plugged into the headphone jack of your CD player. And then jammed this adapter into the cassette deck. And I think I went through 2 or 3 incarnations of CD player so that I could listen to a collection of CDs, mixed CDs, which I called Songs for Driving Around.
I used to take a lot of pride in naming my mix CDs. I still have some in my
Be a lot better
my
than songs
binder.
for driving around.
Yeah, I tried to get pretty creative. My most daring driving endeavor was when I realized that I could plug my cassette adapter into my laptop. So there was one trip that
Did you like dub cassettes onto your laptop?
no, what I did is I took
Oh,
the
I see. Going the other way around.
Yes, I
yeah,
took the
gotcha.
cassette adapter, plugged it into my cassette deck in my car, plugged it into my laptop, and I was driving down to Ithaca to see the girl that I was dating at the time, and I was listening / half watching the Shawshank Redemption with the laptop like on my passenger seat. I don't know how I'm alive, Mitch.
You know,
I'm not condoning this. I was like 19 and very stupid.
I believe there was a point at which I was about the same age, and even lamer than this, I once made an entire cassette dub of the movie Spinal Tap so that I could, or this is Spinal Tap, so that I could listen to the whole movie without any of the visuals on a long drive.
That's awesome. I'm a person who likes to fall asleep with the TV on, but it's just for the sound. Like I don't
You and
care
me
about,
both, man.
Yeah. And it bothers Erin when the light is shining and she's trying to sleep. So I try to turn the brightness down as much as I can. But I often think how much better would my life be if I could just listen to the audio of a movie. So I might do that. I might just start ripping audio. Who are we talking to today?
We are talking, and the best part about this is that there are no visuals, so you could actually, people could be falling asleep to us and this upcoming interview as we speak.
We do have soothing NPR voices.
We'll set a little alarm to go off at the end of it. So anyway, we are talking to Jerry Huntley, a very nice woman who is the founder of a nonprofit called OurStoryBridge, which does a lot of similar things to a project that we at NCPR have called North Country at Work. Her nonprofit is a little more generally focused than North Country at Work, and it has also grown. She founded it in Keene, but has taken this model and basically made it something that can be replicated around the country. And it encourages people to tell their story, whatever the theme is. But the catch is that they tell it in one take in 5 minutes or less, which sounds a lot like the Howl.
Yeah.
And they're collected on their website or the specific project websites. And she's an unlikely person to have started this. We talk a little bit about how she got into storytelling, because it was not, she doesn't have a library degree or anything. It's not in her background, but it has very much become a huge part of what she does. So let's listen to it now. Jerry Huntley, thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you so much, Mitch. It's an honor to be here.
I want to go back before any of the individual particular projects began to the inception of OurStoryBridge. What was it about you and the things you've done and the people you've known and the lessons you've learned that made collecting oral histories and storytelling so important to you?
Well, it's surprising to me that I wasn't an oral historian. But when I moved to Keene Valley, I live in Keene Valley half the year. I live in Washington, D.C. half the year. I started volunteering at the school and the library. And I learned in the school that we push our kids to college. If they make it, they don't come back. If they don't make it, they're back in town. And they don't know what a life staying in the Adirondacks as an adult can be. They don't know how we volunteer and take care of each other. They don't know the jobs that are available. They don't know that so much of American history happened here in the North Country. And then volunteering in the library, I learned some of the same things about our history, but I also learned that we're losing it. Like other rural areas, population skews old. People just don't listen to hours of old oral histories on who knows what technology. They don't look at the first edition spying about the area. They don't look about look at all the digitized photos. And so I felt like we needed to preserve the history and bring it to the kids. Again, without knowing anything about oral history, I found this platform. And going back to being a teacher and a librarian early in my career, I thought about the shortness of the attention spans of young and old now, and how we are online all the time. And with this platform called Memoria, I could collect up to 5-minute audio stories, upload some photos, often coming from the archives, and produce what looked like a video, a really catchy short video on a website dedicated to the stories. And that was the start of Adirondack Community in the town of Keene. We started collecting stories. People were nervous about telling their stories. And all of a sudden, everyone in the community did it. We took the first ones in 2019. Bring it up to the future with those couple of years of COVID in there. We celebrated this summer our 400th story in a town with a population of about 1,100. And in the school, we started a project called OurStoryBridge. We teach the kids about the power of stories, how they could construct them. And then they tell their stories. We combine them in podcasts that we post, and they hear about what's happening in their lives, in their families, the joy they find in the Adirondacks. They also listen to stories from the local people as part of the School Story Bridge project. And I always say, as a former teacher, that, you go into those eighth graders and they just absolutely look like they do not want to listen to you. They are forced to sit there. 24 hours after we play some stories and they tell their stories, we go to the back end of the Adirondack Community website, and there's a spike. We can see right away they've listened to those stories. It's at myadirondackstory.org, by the way, myadirondackstory.org. Everything we do there is the model for what has happened across the country. It's where we test things like School Story Bridge and having the stories on a website.
Do you think, and with all due respect for lifelong oral historians or librarians or people who have been professionals in this field for years, do you think that you coming into this without any preconceived model let you sort of take it on in a way that maybe other people hadn't tried?
Interesting question. So from my early career as a teacher and a school librarian, being super organized, that had me set up the systems to do this. And so it's crazy, but I didn't know what I was doing. And it all worked and became the model. And I'd also say that having a long Washington career and learning how to deal with people and being a trainer in meeting facilitation helped me work with people and make them want to do something they don't want to do. They, almost to a person, they come in nervous. They don't want to tell their story. They might have canceled once with us, but they do it and they are guided through it. They don't have to do any homework. They don't write anything. We guide them through their story. And to a person, if they're done, they stand up, they say, thank you. And then they say, can I ask my friends and neighbors to tell their stories? Shoo, this was so much fun. And that's what makes me feel really good about doing it. And in fact, after we started this project in Keene in 2020, I just looked at the town and I said, if we could do this, anybody could do this. I wrote a manual on how we did it, hardware, software, marketing, how you get money, collaborations, the order in which you do things. And then I sat at my kitchen table in Keene with the mountains in the background, and I made some short how-to videos showing my screen and talking about it. I got some money from some foundations, started a website, called it OurStoryBridge, put everything on the website, the training tools, and even put testimonials from people in the town of Keene. I got myself a speech the end of September in 2020 at the Association of Rural and Small Libraries. It went virtual in COVID. I thought, who's going to care about my COVID project? 6 months in. But I did it. I'll talk about it. 430 librarians around the country listened. Within a few weeks, Tremont in Utah, outside of Salt Lake City, and Igiugig, Alaska, a very remote indigenous community, took all the training tools and created their own OurStoryBridge projects on the model of what we did in the Adirondacks. Well, it's grown since then. There are now 44 projects on our model that we've supported in 15 states and the District of Columbia. All the stories are placed into our teacher's guide that gets posted on the OurStoryBridge.org website. And the teacher's guide summarizes each story, has a link to them, and then has a chart that shows what classes these stories would be good for. You're teaching World War II. The kids are sitting there, oh, I don't want to learn about a war. And you play a story from Charity Marlott in Keene about her father, Alan Washbond, the bobsledder in Hitler's Olympics.
Back then, it was a very interesting time because he and his partner, Ivan Brown, actually built their sled in our garage. And my dad and Ivan and the group that were representing the United States were really in part of a great controversy over whether or not the Olympic team should actually go to Garmisch or not. Because at the time, Adolf Hitler was the tyrant that was trying to prove white supremacy, and in a very horrible way.
And so the teacher's guide, which is updated a few times a year, is available on the website with other tools to get these stories into schools. Our methodology is different, and it's what makes it interesting to them. 5 minutes online instantly. And at first, and I think you alluded to this a bit, would regular oral historians, traditional oral historians, what would they think about this? Well, after I gave my first workshop at the Oral History Association, I was shocked they invited me. They made me co-chair of one of their committees. And what oral historians, professional ones, say to me is the OurStoryBridge methodology is the gateway to listening to longer oral histories. You get interested in this quick online format, and then you might listen to the longer ones and learn from them. But in any case, there's always something to learn. Yes, we do this through donations. We would love if you went to ourstorybridge.org, but we still help people. Free donations, grants. You read the tools on our website. We do Zooms. We give you instructions for months. We help you put it together. And then your website's released. Your stories are there. And after that, we take all your stories and we put them in the teacher's guide.
And you say we, and you do work with a handful of other people, but by and large, most of this is on your dining room table.
Well, my dining room table when I'm in DC and my kitchen table when I'm in Keene. I have an internship at University of Albany Graduate School of Library Science, and I teach librarians to get the labor to help us, and also to teach them a lot of the things they need to know as librarians these days that they might not learn in library school. A lot of those now librarians and archivists and museum people have volunteered for OurStoryBridge or have worked for us part-time. There are also former teachers and even students around the country who help review and summarize the stories for the teacher's guide. So I am a full-time volunteer. We have other volunteers. We have some people who get paid. And it's really been a great experience using all the things I've done in my career.
You mentioned that this all began with my Adirondack story in Keene and has grown and encompasses story projects in the Adirondacks and in the North Country and story projects elsewhere. How important is telling stories to ourselves as North Country residents versus telling our stories as North Country residents to the rest of the world?
One of the things we've learned from OurStoryBridge is people don't know who live in there. They don't know who lives in their community. They don't know who lived there in the past. They don't know who has been there. They don't know their own communities, and they can learn them within OurStoryBridge project. And in this country and world of so much conflict, I want people in Nebraska to understand the conflicts we face in our rural community so that they know they're having the same problems as we are. And maybe we can work together to solve them. And this one, veteran Jordana Malik questions her military service in light of the changes at the Veterans Administration.
It breaks my heart how things have changed. When I talk to VA employees, they tell me that morale is at an all-time low. And the people that I interact with at the VA, I know how deeply they are committed to their mission. And the idea that they no longer feel that their service in the VA is of value or their military service is of value, it breaks my heart. I know that the people that I see, the practitioners I see at the VA, care about their jobs and want to do a good job. But when there's hiring freezes, when spots aren't being filled, when they're not receiving the support that they need, anybody in any job would be challenged under those conditions. And I think this leads to a larger question that we need to ask ourselves as a society and as a country. Veterans made a commitment to serve their country and to serve their nation and to defend democracy. And we did it with pride and we did it with honor. But what does it say when we start to question if the government that we took an oath to defend is no longer willing to invest in us? Do they really care about us?
And then there's the power of stories. For example, I'm speaking in a few weeks at the New York Library Association's Spring on the Hill Advocacy Day. And I'm not really talking a lot about OurStoryBridge. I'm teaching them the power of stories, how you can tell a legislator what you want and what you want them to do and why. But if you give them a personal anecdote about a family in your community or how something has affected you, that story will be remembered and action has more chance of being taken.
And in the interest of self-disclosure, I should mention that you had me share NCPR's story as well.
Exactly. Your story was one of the first stories we took. And when I listened, it helped me understand that people don't know what public radio is. They don't know how it's funded. They don't know how important it is to our lives every day, especially in rural areas.
We're a little concerned. Actually, we're very concerned about the climate for funding for public broadcasting for us and for national public radio and our fellow public radio and television stations around the country. And that could mean really bad things for the people that we serve if we can't keep doing what they've wanted us to do and what they've supported for 56 years or 57 into the future. So let me ask you, because I remember when I recorded the NCPR story, and one of the things that struck me, and, for somebody who has been in this business for 35 years, as I have, I'll say the thing that terrified me was that I had no script and I did it all in one take. Why is that methodology so important?
These are personal narratives. These are from the heart. That's what we want. But we have more of a structure than you see. You come in, you schmooze with us for a while. You don't notice that I'm taking notes. You think I'm just asking you questions to be friendly. I'm really asking you some pointed questions to understand some things. And I have written, if I do it on a Zoom in the chat or on an index card, if I'm sitting with you, the outline of your story with some things for you to remember. So you might not have a script, and we don't want a script. We want that emotion in there. But you have that outline. And then you just talk back at me from the outline, and it's like magic. It just comes out naturally as your story did. The other thing is, because we do this with such meager resources and volunteers taking the stories, we don't have time to edit like you do. We don't have time to do too many takes. We just want someone to give us their best. And it's amazing how they do and how it really works.
What do you tell them to put them at ease?
Well, first of all, I want to say, I don't take all these I haven't done all these 1,500 stories. I've done them for specific projects. It's people in those 44 organizations, like the Keene Historical Society or the Adirondack Mountain Club or the Adirondack Council, or a new one starting at the Osable Forks Free Library or John Brown Lives. It's volunteers that are taking the stories. But once they start doing that conversation and digging through someone's past and present a little bit to see what their passion is their passion their family? Is their passion volunteering for the fire department? Do they want to talk about Tropical Storm Irene and their house was destroyed? Do they want to talk about the Adirondack Rail Trail?
The current situation in the United States has meant that we have fewer Canadian visitors, and Canadians on an average year will account for 30% of our local visitation. So we're really seeing that economic impact, and it's happening right now when the Adirondack Rail Trail is just completed and when we would really expect to see a huge boost to our local businesses, to our local towns. They're seeing their numbers decreasing or flat because of that loss of Canadian visitors.
And so by the time it's only a few minutes later, they're telling the story, they are relaxed. They're used to talking to me or the person taking it, and they kind of forget that there's a microphone there.
What do you hope when, I was going to say when all is said and done, but I don't know if anything will ever be all said and done. But when you think about the impact that this volunteer work that you have been doing for these years has on your community in Keene, but also these communities where you've never lived, how do you take stock of the impact that you've had on the lives of these communities?
A specific and a general. The specific. Right in the second year of COVID, in the spring, I was at a memorial service. And a woman came up to me and she said, during these 2 hard COVID winters in the North Country, I was starting to get depressed. And I started listening to a story every night. And that depression turned into a feeling of warmth, helped me understand that I was in the right place to be during COVID because I had listened to my neighbors. And so in the general sense, I want kindness. I want this to bring us kindness. I want this to increase civil discourse. I want people to be able to talk to each other. I want people in disparate communities to understand how diversity builds. I want them to understand what it's like in other areas. And so I'm hoping, we are all hoping at OurStoryBridge, all the people working on it in 15 states and those who work with us at ourstorybridge.org, we are hoping that we can add some kindness and understanding to this world.
Well, Jerry Huntley, I hope so too.
Thank you, Mitch. I really enjoyed this.
Jerry Huntley is the founder of OurStoryBridge. You can find a link to many stories on the OurStoryBridge website and also see the videos that go along with them from our website, ncpr.org/northwards. Ethan Shanty is our producer, by the way. I forgot to intro him.
That's fine.
About 35 minutes ago, but here he is.
Yes, here I am. Talking about how Jerry is an unlikely candidate to have started this makes me think about, you and I were having a conversation the other day about your kids getting into college and the things that they were studying, and you mentioned that you went through 7 different majors before you settled on something.
The irony being that the first and the seventh were the same.
Which was broadcast?
No, political science.
Oh, political science,
yeah.
Right. And what are you doing with that political science degree currently?
I will say that my work in trying to work with state legislators to increase funding for public broadcasting is literally the first time I have put my political science degree to good use.
Well, that's good.
Since I graduated in 1992.
Yeah, and I know so few people, and this is not what you think is going to happen when you're getting into college for the first time. You've applied to a school because they have the program that you want, and you think that's going to be the career path that you follow. But for so many people, that's not the reality. I can think of 2 people in my life who are using the degree that they got. One is a pharmacist and the other is a music teacher. Other than that, life takes you in pretty strange directions.
So what was your original major when you got into college?
It was the only thing I ever declared, which was creative writing. And I would make a strong case that I'm using that degree today.
So you went from creative writing and graduated with the same degree that you started with?
Yep. So, I have to count myself in that group of people that I know who are following a career path that aligns with their degree. But it's pretty rare. Most of the people who are in the program with me I don't know that they're
uncreative writers.
Exactly. Well, I'm sure a lot of them do use that the skills that they learned in their current jobs. A lot of them are fundraisers. They work for nonprofits or they do administrative work or whatever. One of the guys who was in my creative writing program is now a tattoo artist. He did most of the work on my arms.
That's creative writing.
Kind of creative scribbling.
Well, right. It's
scrawling.
Creative drawing.
I just think it's fascinating where people's lives take them.
Yeah.
A couple of my friends who I think were pursuing history and education respectively, both now work as paralegals. yeah, I think it's fascinating to find out where people came from and where they end up.
Well, and it does speak to the value of a liberal arts degree, because even if you major in creative writing, there's a use for it you can work in computer science and need your creative writing skills. Actually, the girl I dated when I was in college was an English and French major, and for the last, 20 years or something, she has been in virus remediation for a national telecommunications company.
Wow, cool.
And which surprised me. And then I read someplace that English majors are apparently well sought after in computer fields.
Probably because they have the ability to translate technical jargon to the average person.
Right, or they take a critical look, the ability to read metaphors or see meanings in literature translates to being able to see the same thing in a line of code or something else. I was briefly an English major, and now I am not in the computer field. So
I was just reading an interview with Gillian Flynn, who is the author of Gone Girl and Sharp Objects. Have you read her before?
I have not.
Okay, super good. We just listened to her book Sharp Objects on audiobook, and the main character is a journalist, and I was thinking, wow, this is really authentic. The character is kind of asking the kind of probing questions that only a journalist would think to ask, right? And I was like, God, I wonder if she has this as her background, and indeed she does. And I was reading this interview with her, and she was talking about how she always wanted to write books, but she was a sensible Midwestern woman, and so she was like, well, nobody makes a living writing books, so I'll get into journalism, and I'll love that too. And she talked about how she was writing articles for Entertainment Weekly, so she would go from the set of Jackass 2 in the daytime, and then working on this murder mystery at night and on the weekends. I just thought it was really fun.
That's a cool double life.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, with that, we come to the end of another exciting edition of Northwards. Spoiler alert, here come the credits.
Northwards is an NCPR podcast production. The show is written, produced, and edited by Mitch Tyke with digital production supervision by me. I'm Ethan Shanty. Bill Hanel is our digital director, and Caitlin Kelly, for the last time, is our social media manager. You can find more about this show at ncpr.org/northwards, where you can listen to past conversations and support the program if you so choose. Our theme music is by the Wickmore Jazz Trio of Plattsburgh. This is NCPR North Country Public Radio.
Was it Raspberry Beret or was it the Little Red Corvette? I'm not sure.
We'll find out.